Welcome to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada, a podcast dedicated to exploring layers of healing and transformation within the recovery community. My name is Peg McDermott, your host, and my co-host is
Heather Hageman.
Awesome. And today we're going to be talking about the principles and guiding principles that we follow and try to follow in our daily lives as part of our recovery. And these principles are pretty well known in the recovery community. And we wanted to talk a little bit about that today and share our experience around each and hopefully get you thinking about how they manifest in your life, because I think these guiding principles are really a really good life blueprint for all of us. And I, for one, never really had this kind of structure outside of the Catholic Church growing up. So it's been really good to sort of reframe the structure within which I try to run my day-to-day life. So what do you think, Heather?
I was just going to say that before recovery, I had my own principles and my own rules that I lived by. And sometimes they were not legal. So I'm just telling you. Yes. So coming into recovery, I became an adult. I had to become mature and I had to, we're missing pieces. But before we go any further, my dear, I want to share that this is a special day. And I just want to say happy anniversary to you, Peg. I am so inspired by you. You have been a great light of hope in my life and very inspiring in all that you are and what you do. And I just want to say thank you for showing me the way. And I believe today is how many years of sober living?
30. 30 years.
You're 30 years old.
HP, you, everyone that I love and know in the community has helped me to do this one day at a time. You can make different choices every day that leads you to a drink or away from a drink. And thankfully, I've made more choices away from a drink and closer to recovering people like you and my community and other people that have shown me the grace of how to live life with integrity and love and lead with that, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about the guiding principle, right?
Yes.
Because it's a good reminder that I need the reminder, because it's, oh yeah, like when we start with the first one being honesty, that wasn't something that I didn't really know how dishonest I was until I stopped drinking. And I didn't know, and truly, I mean, I wouldn't go out and deliberately say, I'm going to lie today about 18 times, but I would. And some of it, I wasn't even aware I was lying. And sometimes I would lie when I didn't really have to lie. But mostly I was dishonest with myself and where I was, and that my life was not, I was in trouble when I was using. And sometime into my recovery as well, although things got much better as I recovered. But with the honesty piece, it was like when we live by this principle, our path gets narrower and narrower. There's not a whole lot of leeway for us left or right as far as honesty goes, or any of these principles really. But honesty was one where I had to sort of come into knowing the real definition of it. And that is being true to myself and being true to others and not feeling the need to deceive myself or anyone else.
Yes. And I think what you began with, just saying that the honesty, of course, and repeating what you're saying, but this honesty had to begin with me. And I think the hardest thing that I struggled with is I did not, in my mind, show up as an alcoholic. I didn't look like an alcoholic. I didn't, in my mind, didn't act like an alcoholic, because alcoholics drink every day and they lose everything. they drink out of paper bags and they're on the streets. And I would drink, like, my pattern was every 2 weeks. And that kind of dishonesty with myself kept me from getting help for a very long time. And this is probably the most important step in towards moving away from the strategy of addiction into living the sober life, was to really get honest and admit just to totally admit that I can't do this anymore. My power is not enough, and I need more power. And for me, it began with the therapist chair, therapist
Mhm.
profession. And then I was in a group, and then I sought more help. And it's just been this journey of actually that never goes away, that I have to continually kind of pause and assess and be honest with people and tell people when I am not doing well, because my behavior will be, I will isolate and not talk to anyone. And I've got to do the opposite. And that's one of the things I learned early on: do the opposite of what you feel. If you don't want to be around people, go be around people. You don't want to call somebody that's helping you, call them. So it's this honesty goes really deep into all the areas. And the one thing I just will say is the hardest part, I think, and it's been something that's been a journey for many years, because I just unleashed some secrets that I was keeping. And
Mhm.
I've been keeping these for many years, and I was really grateful to be able to share these secrets with the right person, because they're right age to understand it. But these secrets, this hiding the secrets, is another part of not becoming really honest, not being truthful and authentic, and not sharing, this is what happened to me, and this is what I did. And this is something that we'll talk about at another time, is that these things get loaded with shame, and then we don't want to speak about it. But becoming honest and talking to people that totally get us and don't shame us and judge us, that has been the most healing part of this journey for me.
Mm. Beautifully said. Acknowledging that truth initially was the truth around the unmanageability of my addiction and alcoholism, and not really thinking. I mean, I knew down deep I had a problem because my life was unmanageable when I drank. And I didn't think it was unmanageable when I didn't drink, but it was. My relationships were unmanageable. A lot was unmanageable because I was unmanageable inside. And so really that surrender, really, that the complete honesty to myself, but just knowing I need help and I need to go to a place that's safe and where I won't be judged. And there aren't any conditions around their love for me. It's real. And that made it safe for me to be honest, because that wasn't a principle that felt safe for me growing up. When I was honest, I got my butt kicked because my caregivers didn't want to hear it. I believe children are naturally honest. They look at things and they call it like they see it. And I did. And I got in a lot of trouble for doing that. And so I learned honesty is going to get me in trouble. And that led to a double life, really. To be honest with you, wasn't one that I was happy. So honesty it's an underpinning of all of the principles, really, because it starts with honesty for a reason, because really none of them will really manifest in my life if I'm not honest around what's going on with me today. How am I feeling? Am I doing okay? Because like you said, we have to share if we're not doing well. That's honesty, vulnerability. And that hasn't come easy for me, but it has paid off in spades. Then the other one was hope and believing in the possibility of a power greater than me. And knowing that you get to the point where you have to fully surrender, and then you have to turn over, you have to believe that there's this entity that's going to restore me to sanity. And I'm thinking, and really what it comes down to is that's exactly what happened. over the course of these years is I had more soundness of mind. And the hope helped me to see that I wasn't doing this alone. I didn't have to do it alone. And that was key because I always felt alone.
I think the predominant feeling I carried around was hopelessness. I really felt broken, and I've shared this before, and I didn't have much hope for me. I just felt like this is as good as it gets. Never really understanding that drinking alcohol, the amounts that I was drinking was causing a lot of hopelessness in me. I love the acronym. I'm going to change it up just for a moment here because I think this is really cute. Happy our people exist. Oh, or happy our program exists, but happy our people exist. It's something that's really very, very transformational, is to be able to be listened to and have people talk with you that are sharing their wisdom, and they know the hopelessness, they know the pain, and it's like this idea. And what was kind of, I've said this many different times, I've been in hell. I know what hell is, and these principles lead me out of hell into heaven on earth. Truly.
I like that. Say that acronym again.
Well, HOPE, HOPE, happy our people exist, or happy our program exists. I like right now in saying this to you that I'm happy our peeps exist. We have a group and we're called the
peeps.
Our peeps exist.
Peeps.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. That's one I'm going to remember. It's like that iteration of how that reminds us that we're not alone.
Yeah.
In this realm and beyond, we're not alone.
Yeah.
And then the third being faith and trusting, which of course I didn't come to the party with a lot of trust to begin with. So the third principle of faith was hard for me because I had a hard time turning over control, which is an illusion, of my thoughts and my actions. And I thought, well, I was relieved of the obsession to drink alcohol, but I got the rest of it. And it was, no. And I was reminded again and again that if I really want to walk this path, I have to trust in this being greater than me. And trusting that this higher power will guide me through life and that has my back, basically. And that I trust with my life. And in every case, when I have leaned on that HP, that higher power, it has never let me down, ever.
And I think for me, it started in such a very, feel like I kind of went to ground zero because I had been raised, and I think I've said this in past podcasts, I was raised by a Roman Catholic mother and a Protestant father. And I think what I loved is that I was able to just move those away and really step into what did faith look like for me. And in the beginning, faith was going outside and seeing the sun was going to rise and the sun was going to fall, seeing the life around me in nature, going and being around people sharing wisdom who were ahead of me in the journey, and having faith because they demonstrated it. They walk the walk. It allowed me to begin to I trust that wow. And you know what? They're not depressed. I mean, they're laughing. This isn't funny. Like whenever I'd go to a meeting, it was a gratitude meeting, which is, I don't know if that's one of our things here. I don't think it is, but whenever time is a gratitude meeting, it was like, Heather, do you have gratitude? Like, how are you? But I kept having faith. If I kept going back and listening to people talk and share the journey, that somehow that was going to transmit to me and I was going to get it. And it did. And it really helped because I began to count on people showing up. And then that mirroring helped me to show up, because it was
Mhm.
really the journey was me showing up for me, having faith that I would no longer be at war within myself and doing things that I just couldn't believe I did. The shock of the things I did. And so I felt like I had this like different personalities inside of me that were, and realizing as everybody started to settle in my internal world, I could have faith in myself that we would do the next right thing as long as we kept going forward and surrounding ourselves with other people that have faith as well.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. And I like what you said about learning to have faith in ourselves,
Mhm.
because I didn't have that until I was able to trust in other friends, peeps like you, and to see how you demonstrated faith in your life. And it was, don't tell me, show me. And you showed me. And others that are true to this path have shown me what it's like to live in a faith-based way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's a religious way. It's more just a way of being, of trusting that there is a higher power and it's not me. But at the same time, I still have agency over my life. And I trust I'll make good decisions. I have faith I'll make good decisions because I put faith in this entity that loves me without end. And then with courage, the next principle, which is facing the personal flaws and conducting a fearless moral inventory, that was terrifying. I was freaking terrified because I'd never really taken an honest look at myself and how that looked in my life. And I, for one, could not cultivate that kind of courage without honesty, hope, and faith. Couldn't do it. That was like my foundation to really move into that place where I needed to take a very honest and fearless inventory of my behavior, of what it was making me tick under the lash of alcoholism, and how I treated myself and how I treated people, and really looking at that and not in a way that I would shame myself because I wanted to. It was because my mentor showed me that it wasn't necessary to beat myself up, but it was necessary to look honestly because of the traits of this disease caused me to treat people poorly. And it had these expectations that no one could meet. And I had no idea I was doing that until I took that honest look at myself. And I couldn't do that without some measure of courage.
Courage for me was, I think of the Wizard of Oz and the lion, right? He wanted courage, right? He thought it was this outside thing that he wanted to grab a hold of. But really, courage came about for me every time I got up and I chose to do the right thing. I chose to get the medicines that I needed from the professionals and from the groups, and that every day I moved towards recovery instead of sobriety helped me to really combat fear, because fear was my baseline. I was an
Mhm.
anxious, fearful human. And that's how I lived. And that's why I didn't want to feel those feelings. It was chronic. It was just, it's the way that my body manifested its response towards stress. It hardwired into me this baseline of always, oh, afraid. And so this courage came about. And it took time. It just wasn't something that happened overnight. And it took this, I want to say this, it took building resiliency to get to
Mhm.
this place where I
Mhm.
could be in fearful situations, baffled by them, but intuitively knowing what the next step was. Like, that's written in some of the literature that I've read just this idea that, when we stand in our truth and we work these principles in our lives, we can overcome mostly all fears, right?
Mhm.
And I always think of fears as this, face everything and recover, or F everything and run. That was another that
Mm.
was me before, F everything and run, or face everything and recover. And I think that's what courage has helped me with. And what I will tell you, before I came into the rooms and got the help that I needed, I believed alcohol was my liquid courage. And that was what I used to also move around in the world and deal with my anxiety. And now I had to do it differently, and I learned how to do that from many different venues, but mainly to let go of the liquid courage took courage.
Hey, a lot of
A
it.
lot of it, and to trust that I'm not gonna be afraid, and then I'm gonna just put one foot in front of the other and just keep doing the next right thing, and eventually, I would feel this courage permeating all of me, and I have. And I'll tell you, there are things I've done in recovery that I never thought I could do by myself. Get on a plane and take a yoga retreat to Japan, which I did this past summer. Just there's little things that I've been able to do because I couldn't even get on a plane without drinking. I mean, I couldn't even get in the airport. I mean, there's just so many beautiful things that happen that show you how courageous you've become.
I know, that's so awesome. I love that story you had around Japan and your experience there too, because going around the other side of the world
Yeah.
to this ancient land and learning some new things and some new freedoms, and yeah, that was pretty cool. And then the next one with integrity is admitting those wrongdoings to myself and to another person and to my higher power. The things that I learned with courage about my own flaws and my own moral inventory, when you see it on paper and then you're actually admitting it to yourself and then to another person, or to God and to another person, I call my higher power God. You don't have to. That's who I call my higher power. And having that mirror, that other person to be with me as I'm sharing that, because it's a very vulnerable time. And again, going back to growing up with a lack of honesty and the lack of courage. You don't treat people the way I was treated if you aren't really afraid. And like you said, with fear, it is the other side of courage and faith. But admitting the wrongdoings or the things that came up in that written inventory really showed me what integrity looks like and why it's so important on this path.
And like you said, it's a kind of me, it's like a state of being. And it's something that it's like a soundness of mind. And so I have heard myself say that I need to live in integrity when I'm explaining to people who want to cut corners and want to do things, little white lies. I can't do that. I have to live in this way of being, this way of soundness. And I mean, and sometimes it is so frustrating. And at least this hasn't happened in a while, but I will walk out of a store and I forgot something underneath the basket. And I get to my car and I go, and so I go, okay, there's two things I do. I'll tell you, the first thing I've done is just immediately go back in the store and then pay for what I walked out with. Second thing is to say to myself, next time you go in, you're just going to tell them that's what happened. So I've done both. But it's
Mm.
better to go back in and pay for it, because when you go back in with nothing in hand and you say you accidentally walked out with something, they don't look at you very well. They're like, I'm not sure. And I'm like, no, I got to live in alignment with my integrity, I tell them, because I will be struck by lightning. But that I feel like I have to do the right thing in every part of my life. And
That's not
yeah,
easy.
it's
That
not
is not an
easy.
easy thing to do.
That's why we
That's
need
what I meant
courage.
about that narrow path. our
Yeah,
path gets narrower and
it
narrower because
does.
you're right. It's like we don't have, and nor do we choose that leeway. It's like, for me, it's usually a case of water when I walk out of the store. And I'm like, oh man. Of course, I go back in with the case of water in on the cart so they can see what it is that I forgot to check out. And we take care of it and it's fine. But there's one little tiny part of me that's, you don't think I'm going to say anything. It's a free case of water. And it's like, no, that water's going to taste like crap. It's not going to be worth it. No.
And Peg, it's always just also this kind of outlook. This could be my store. And how would
Sure.
I would want someone else to bring this back. And this is how I showed my children too. When we were in stores, I would say, and they would knock something off the rack and just let it fall on the floor. I said, we don't do that. We don't, I wouldn't want that in my store. And we pick up things. And I'm telling
We
you, there's so many things that I do in stores because I thought if this is my store, I would not want these clothes on the floor. And I
Right.
pay attention to things like that. That's how I live in integrity.
Mm-hmm. Is being aware, paying attention, absolutely. Because there's always like dozens of ways to cut corners in any day.
Yes.
And again, we don't have nor do we want that leeway. And then there's the willingness to be open, this other principle of letting go of the things that came up in that inventory, the things that we learned about ourselves, the things I learned about myself was like some of it I wasn't sure I wanted to let go of. I liked being angry. It felt powerful. And at the same time, and anger gets a bad rap, I think anger has its place, but with love and not weaponizing it. And that's what I would do with my anger. And I've learned to recognize that it's happening, be aware of it, and know that I need what I need to do to take care of myself to process it rather than lash out. And so seeing that as a part of my character defect was something that I was like, okay, I see how I use this. And maybe some other emotions and some other flaws that, like dishonesty, that I wasn't even aware of until I started letting these principles guide my life, and the willingness to say, okay, I'm willing to let this go. I don't know who I'm going to be when I let it go, but I trust that will be revealed to me.
And the willingness to not do life with reluctance. Like this is something that used to hold me back. I was reluctant to do things. I wasn't willing to do things. But now the mantra for me is to be willing to go to any lengths to maintain my integrity, to live, on this path of whatever path of sober living, which means to me highest self-care living. And so being able to be willing to look at my part in a lot of the things that go on around me in my life, probably to a little bit of extremism. Because lately I've been getting feedback, and this is a journey that happens. Sometimes we go out of balance. I will agonizingly look at my part immediately and pretty much think I've done this. It's me. And when there is another person in the story who also has a part, and I have been told by people that you always do this, you minimize yourself, and you really got to step in and just see that they have a part in this as well. And so I'm trying to find the balance in the middle ground. Does that make sense to you, Peg? What I'm
It
saying?
does. I do that too.
Yeah.
It was just something that I did as a defense mechanism, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, well, it's easier for me to take something on than to have to look at this other person. And I held myself at a lower standard. And I got to the point where I realized what I was doing, just like you said. And I was like, no, I have a part, and that's the first thing I need to look at, but I just need to look at my side of the street. And that was key because that through these principles, we gain self-esteem. And with that stronger, deeper sense of self and love, self-love, we don't take on more than what's ours. But at least we can see the difference. Before it was just one big, seamless story. And I wasn't able to pull it apart to say, okay, this is mine. This is what I need to clean up. And the other side of it is that person's. But it's not 100% me.
Right.
And I can't control whether they clean up their side of the street or not.
No.
But I do have control over whether I do it.
Yep.
Willingness to let go of things that really became a very big part of me.
I know. And also to understand that that's why we call this podcast the Whole Enchilada, is that we don't stop. We want to keep growing, want to keep, trying to use this word loosely, excavating and finding out more about ourselves. But we also sometimes uncover that we are so kind and we are so willing to admit I did this, when that's not the case, when I'm saying I'm sorry for things I'm not really doing.
Yeah.
And I tend to do that. And what I'm finding out is what I'm really needing when I'm in these places is I need just I want the person to validate that they understand what I'm feeling. And then that's not happening. I'm willing to just go, okay, I'm just going to minimize that. And I'm just going to just say, oh, it's just me. And instead of, wait a minute, I had some needs that I need to share. And I'm going on a tangent here, but this willingness goes into a lot of arenas.
Yeah,
and we
does.
want to find balance in all that we do. We don't want to be
Right.
extremely honest and tell people what's on our mind all the time. And there's a gray, not an all or nothing way of dealing with these principles. We're learning and evolving with them every day.
Share your thoughts around humility.
So that's a very good one. In fact, today, I taught yoga class today, and I had everybody place their arms behind their backs, and I had them place their front foot forward and had them bow down, and it's called Humble Warrior. And I talked about, it's not about humiliation, it's about humility, which is about not being proud or haughty, or arrogant. It's about understanding that we are very sincere in a desire to become what we can be. It's like being right-sized. It's like being right-sized in our life and not making it always about me. It's always about me. And that's a hard one to shake too. That's another imbalance, is that I always think that it is about me. My first thought wrong. And then I got to shift out of that. But this hump humility it's beautiful in what it's saying. And it's hard though when people are saying things to you. Gosh, you're so wise. You say such great things. Like you do so many, you're so creative. And it's so hard for me to not, and I get actually kind of like shy, and I feel humbled, but I think that's beautiful that I don't go, yeah, I'm great and be in that realm, but I'm more like, I'm humble and grateful. And oftentimes I say, when people are thanking me for something, I say, hey, thank you. I'm just a mirror. We're just mirrors. It's the way to take out that power over ego thing that is the opposite of humility to me.
And I did get the two mixed up initially, humiliation and humility. And with that also came a lot of trust that if I was willing, I could ask my higher power to remove my shortcomings. And when I got to the principles of willingness and humility, and I had uncovered lots about me, I thought, well, okay, what do I need to do now? I need to do something. I have all this information. I'm supposed to just humbly turn it over to this entity that I can't see and trust that I will be healed. And that was hard for me. It was a little too abstract. I think I needed more action steps, but the action steps really were being humble enough to trust that this higher power will relieve me of these character defects, and in that higher power's time and in not mine. And so some of them are removed and some of them aren't, and some of them come back. And so it's this lifelong process of really keeping humility and underpinning of the spiritual path, and at the same time knowing that there's this other higher power that knows what's happening and it's not me. And I need to listen and be aware of what that is, because it's for my highest good. And if it's in my highest good, it's in your highest good. I mean, it works for everybody. So the humility piece is really, I never really anchored that to like happiness, but I feel that it is, because I feel like, yes, I have faith over my decisions, and I have faith that I will be guided when I don't know what to do. And that was those two principles were probably the hardest for me to get my arms around, because there again, I'm let's get things done kind of gal. And this was really more of trust and turning things over and trusting that what needs to be healed will be healed if I'm willing. And I show the humility needed to say, I want to be of the highest service. And I know some of these things that have come up aren't going to help me do that. So please help me.
It's basically boils down to just, for me, recognizing my limitations and then accepting help from others. I think that as before recovery, I didn't accept help from anybody. I was my own king or queen. I was a leader of my own world, and I didn't have help from anybody. And then humility, this getting sober and working these principles brought me to my knees, and I had to be willing to accept help from others.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we move into the principles around our relationships with others, starting with brotherly love and making a list of the people, these humans that we've harmed, and putting ourselves at the top of that list and being willing to make amends. It doesn't mean we're going to go and make amends to anyone right now. It's just we're making a list of people that have come up and that we've worked with our sponsor, our mentor, on what's appropriate and what isn't, and should this person be on my list or not, because I won't always be the best judge of that. If anything, I'll put too many people on my list because I took everything on. I cleaned up your side of the street and mine. Well, mostly I looked at your side of the street, really didn't look at mine. But I took on way too much of what wasn't my responsibility.
Principle of love. I think that the whole journey of love starts with myself, for recognizing that there's something that's, I don't want to use the word wrong with me, but that something happened to me somehow, and I needed to find a way. And I didn't realize what I was really trying to find a way was to love myself, and to really love myself so much that I could also love you, and also move into this energy of just being love, just being in service to love. And I didn't know, I didn't know this, and it's taken many years for this to evolve, but I believe that is one of the most important principles, of course, in this journey, is this unselfish concern for people, and to really see people, and to really listen to people, and to really truly love people in a way that I've never loved before. I have learned to love in this program, in this life, in this, I've learned to love, and I've never, not selfish love, but a love that's, I think I could say to you, Peg, if you needed a kidney, I would give you my kidney. Okay. That kind of love. Yes. I would really do that for you. I would do. And I think that is amazing to live like that. It really is, to live in love.
When at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, at the end of a life, all it's really comes back down to is love. How we gave it and how we allowed ourselves to receive it. And then the other side of that is seeing, okay, I had this list of people that I hurt and I need to make amends and I need to change. And as one of my friends says, if you keep doing it, then it's not old behavior. It's existing behavior. Had to really look at this and take responsibility for my actions and do it in an appropriate way and not take on more or less of what is mine and work with someone to help me sort it out and not go and grovel at anybody's feet, because that's not what this is about. This is about owning what I've done and taking responsibility for it and truly apologizing and asking if there's anything I can do to make it right and changing my behavior. That is an amends.
Mhm.
That is justice. And that's what this principle's about.
True love, true, authentic love
Mhm.
between our fellows.
Yep.
Fellas. Which one?
Fellas. It's a
Huh.
sisterhood and a brotherhood, and
Yeah.
we just love them all.
Yeah.
The next one is perseverance. And I think continually taking personal inventory and admitting mistakes promptly is something that I need because I have a certain way of thinking. And if I'm hungry, if I'm angry, lonely, or tired, I'm going to kind of default to this sort of self-centered way of being. And it's not something that I actively am aware of sometimes. And I do need to watch because we're human, we're not at a point where we're not making mistakes. That's why we're here. We're supposed to be making mistakes. It's being aware of it and admitting it and apologizing as quickly as possible when that's necessary.
Perseverance is what's going to get us to the end of our life. We just keep persevering, keep doing all the right things, all, again, coming back to that self-love, that self-care, that self-compassion, putting the oxygen mask on ourselves, all the right things so that we can create this incredible inner sanctuary, the secure foundation where we are feeling a constant felt sense of wholeness so that when we are in each other's space, we are persevering and attuning and co-regulating for that other person to match us and to find their way through us, which will lead us to one of the last principles, which is coming up, which is service. But this is all part of the journeys that we embody these principles. They're embodied in us, in everything that we do and everything that we say and what we believe.
And there'll be times when we fall short because we're humans.
Always.
And that's okay as long as we're recognizing it and I'm recognizing it and I'm doing what needs to be done to make it right. Because
Yes.
those things can build up. And if we don't recognize it and we don't take ownership of it, that can lead us back to actively using again. And that is the way this disease can find its way into our heads again. And it's through this lack of perseverance and lack of self-awareness and really sort of slacking off in how I carry myself from day to day. And so that to me is about being invested in this type of living, but also knowing I'm human, I'll make mistakes, but I'm at least willing to persevere and do the right thing and not fill a gunny sack full of rocks that I'm going to beat myself up with or anyone else. And then leading to the 11th principle of spirituality and seeking to improve a conscious contact with a higher power. Tell me your thoughts around that.
Yeah, this is to me is the principle of awareness. I think about that it's about when we live our spiritual life, we have conscious contact. To me, it's contact with being present and mindful of my thoughts and behaviors. And it's just for me, I have to be in this awareness state and always trying to be awake to what I'm doing, because I will revert. And I did it just recently, and I just got appalled by myself. And I said, wait a minute, please do not do the negative self-talk. It's okay. But I immediately said I was sorry for my behavior. But then I kept saying sorry all day long, which is probably not the best way to keep doing that. But for me, I don't do this behavior anymore. And it was shocking. So this is the conscious contact that needs to be done daily, and that and that I need to be present and mindful and grounded and have practices that keep me in that place of centeredness, of stability. I need to be very careful what I digest to my eyes, to my ears. Am I doing too much scrolling and news first thing in the morning? I've got to be very careful on where I place myself so that I can be really conscientious and aware of how this is affecting me, but also how it's affecting my behavior throughout the day. Yeah, this is very important. And this takes time and practice. It's like trying to establish a mindful pause throughout the day, just checking in on yourself and your awareness. How am I doing? Where am I? Are my feet planted here? Am I out there? Like, how can I be more present? Yeah.
Right. And also the benefits of just meditation alone are remarkable as far as how it affects just about every aspect of our being. And I do work to meditate every day. I don't do it religiously every day, but I do it most days. And I can feel the difference when I don't do it. I can feel it, because for me, the meditation piece is also my way of allowing my higher power to heal me and to heal my thinking and to change my thinking and to help me to see beyond my little world, that there are other people, there are other situations beyond what I can see. And that meditation practice and prayer for me also is important. Those two things. And that goes back to what we talked about last time, which is having a routine of self-care. And part of that is meditation and prayer, and just taking time just to be, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. That can make all the difference. Or 5, or whatever you're able to do, or walk. There's all kinds of different meditations. But that connection to a higher power, for me, it's one of my favorite principles, because again, it reminds me, and it sort of goes back to principle 3 as well, as knowing I'm not alone, having that faith and having that knowledge deep in my being that I am watched over and loved without end, and that it's not difficult for me to connect with that love and connect with that care. And I just have to make the investment and the commitment to do it. And that's where this principle really helps me to see that. It's, yeah, I really like the calmness and the peace and the clarity that I'm able to live my life by. And that really comes from that connection for me. So tell me about our last principle and your thoughts around service.
This is the only way for me at this time of my life that I probably wake up first thing in the morning and I ask to be of service. And I want to be placed in situations with people that I can be of service to, and I want to be in service to love. It is where I'm at in this recovery journey. It is the only thing that honestly helps me feel, I guess, I mean, I'm just, maybe I have some kind of, maybe this has become too much, but I really feel like this is how that I'm supposed to be, that this is what I was born to do, was to be of service to to other people, to humans, to animals too, but to
Animals
people.
are
But every day is my day to wake up and be of service. And I wake up and I I pray and I ask, who do I need to send a little text to and say, I love you, I'm thinking of you. I did this the other day to a woman I'm mentoring, and she saw me later on in the day. She said when she got that text, she cried. All I said was, I love you and I see you and have a beautiful day. I mean, just in those little things I do. And then when I'm talking to people, I really try to be fully present in myself, because it's the greatest gift you can give another is when you're fully present in their presence. And that to me is the act of service as well. And I'll just add this one last piece, because I just wrote a blog on this. I wrote a blog on this because I'm really trying to figure out how to really maximize positivity in my life right now and have move away from negative thinking. And so I amped it up. I ramped it up. I ramped up. I thought every person I come across today, I'm going to see them. I'm going to smile. I'm going to walk around with an inner smile, and I'm going to just be of service to listen to whatever I can add to the conversation. Great. And even with people that I don't know, for support, just to end with this, I got a call from the doctor's office to tell me that I'm supposed to be, I have an appointment this week. And I thought it was the computer generated thing. And so I kind of went, hello, because figured it was a computer. And then the person says, hi, may I speak to it? And I was like, oh, hey, I amped it up. You today. It's of you to call me. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Are you having a good day? I mean, this is how I spoke to her. She started to laugh because she probably thought it was a nutball, but it doesn't matter. I was just like, peace out. And she said, thank you so much. Like, you just see this genuine, thank you. I don't get that during my day. And that's what I'm going to do to every person out there that is in my path. I'm going to smile. I'm going to nod. I'm going to see them. And that's service to me today. Plus,
And
helping others to recover from this disease,
Mhm.
but also being a light, an emissary of hope and peace in the world. That's
Yes, do that. I can attest to that. And is carrying the message to those that really never found our way of being. They didn't need to. They don't have the disease of alcoholism or addiction, but they can certainly use a drop of love in their life. And who doesn't need that? And so practicing these principles in all aspects of our lives is really what this last principle of service is about. What you described is exactly what it's about. And I do believe that's what we're here to do. So once we learn to love ourselves and heal, then we're able to really go out and be of genuine and authentic service. And you do that, my friend. Anyway, we've come to the end of our podcast today. Did you have one more thing you wanted to share?
I was just going to say, it's just interesting when I was raised by a father that was all about service, and he always said, you're nothing unless you're giving service. And I remember hearing those words growing up and thinking, how can I be of service when I can't even take care of myself? So I just want to say that again, and you summed it up. It is a process. It is a journey, and you go through it, and it happens as in the speed that it happens. It's not a race, and just allow it to unfold. And when you are so in love with love, and you're carrying yourself as the adult that you always wanted to be, it is such an honor to be of service. I just want to say that. Thank you.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we love you. And the next time we're going to be talking about processing shame and guilt.
Yeah.
A real crowd favorite, I'm sure. I can't wait. Please don't miss it. If you could, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We would greatly appreciate it. Would love your feedback as well. And your reviews mean a lot. And remember that you are not alone on this journey of healing and transformation. And until next time, stay strong and keep growing. I love you very much.
I love you. We do this together. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yay.